Hey guys, I'm Phil and welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about the QuakeCon World Championship Duel Tournament Day 2. And when I say welcome back, I really mean it, because I already recorded 40 minutes of me talking about these games today, yet somehow the audio totally messed up. It's okay though, because the original video probably wasn't that good, and the problem was that I just tried to say too much. There's too much to say about these games for me to possibly cram it all into one video. I had 40 minutes of footage of me just talking, and no one wants to listen to me talk for just 40 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna redo this. I've got a couple of pages of notes in front of me. I have a fabulous glass of red wine, and we're just gonna blast through this. So let's start by talking about the groups here. The groups went more or less as expected. There were no major upsets. Unfortunately, the Australians didn't cause any upsets, and all of the Australians except Astro Boy, aka Dander King, were eliminated in the group stage. I think that's the most significant thing to say about the groups. Other than that, you know, the strong players went through, the weak players generally didn't. Also important to note is that the group stage wasn't broadcast at all on Twitch. There were no VODs, so I haven't been able to watch any of these games, so what I can say about them is really limited. And in fact, we're going to go straight on and talk about the playoffs. So the playoffs today, we had some really massive games from the very first round. We had Cooler vs Toxic, Zron vs Astro Boy was really fun, Razy vs Rafa almost ended in tears for a lot of people. We had Kilson vs Vu, where Vu advanced. So ultimately, these brackets came down to the grand final we're going to have tomorrow, Claws vs Vu. If you'd have told me last year that Vu was going to be in a QuakeCon grand final in 2017, I wouldn't have believed it. You know, I love Vu. I'm rooting for Vu tomorrow, but just, it's amazing to see him come back into form like this. He had a good run today. He beat Kilson, he beat Avec, and he beat Deheng. Claws beat Gelisak. Actually, Claws beat Gelisak in the round of 16, a real exciting game too. Claws beat Zron, and then Claws played Cooler in the semi-final, and that is a crucial game. I'm going to devote an entire video to just talking about that, because a lot of people, I think, are kind of confused about what happened. Claws seemed to break the game with his lightning gun, and he did just LG the shit out of Cooler, more or less. My favourite match of the day was probably Cooler vs Toxic, maybe because it was the first one and I had the most attention then, but there just seemed to be a lot of cool stuff going on in this matchup. Really interesting right off the bat for Cooler vs Toxic, we saw Toxic picking Scalebearer as a counter to Sorlag. This is really, really abnormal. We haven't seen Scalebearer at all at QuakeCon other than Toxic, I don't think. Not in the games that were streamed anyway. And we saw it picked on the Ruins of Sarnath too, a map where I've personally used it quite a bit, but I didn't rate it as a very strong pick at a professional level. Toxic made it work. He used the Bull Rush as a really effective movement tool to like get around the map, to catch Cooler where Cooler wasn't expecting him. He hit like back-to-back rails, he opened up frags, he really played on the ball in Ruins of Sarnath. That's not to say Cooler didn't play well, but on the whole we saw a lot of kind of Cooler playing in control and Tox kind of peeking shots out. Cooler, you know, when he would like attack an item with nowhere to go, Tox was actually able to punish him. It was really impressive from Tox. In this game, I really like this second round in particular, because you had this really long standoff between Scalebearer and the Sorlag, and it actually went to an overtime, I believe. We just got to see these two tanky champions where stacks actually mattered. You know, they would stack up, they would trade off, the fights they took had lasting consequences over minutes even. You could see the impact of the fights, you could see players having to back off and restack. It was the closest thing to a traditional Quake duel we've had at this QuakeCon so far. Their second map on Blood Covenant had a really weird start. We saw Tox sit up near the Mega Health and just kind of circle around there a bit, I think on Slash, and Cooler on Sorlag literally sat at the Super Nail Gun for an entire minute of the map. After 2 minutes, they finally kind of swapped position and like swapped out the major items, but 4 minutes into the game, we saw our first big fight where both players committed. Unsurprisingly, this man went to an overtime. Who won this? Oh, that's right, yeah, this match actually had a really hilarious ending, because it came down to this fight right at the end in an overtime, and it was a mutual frag, but Cooler got the damage off first, so he ended up taking it. I think the Quake team should actually look at potentially having a draw for a round, right? If you get a mutual frag like that within a certain window, within like a microsecond of each other, I think you can potentially draw a round. I don't think that would be too bad. But yeah, all in all, we saw a similar situation for Toxic from when he was playing Razy, where like Cooler would get in control as Sorlag, and Toxic just couldn't break it. The acid spit is so strong, Cooler uses the acid spit so intelligently, the positions he takes on the map, like, he just makes himself impossible to attack, more or less. Claus vs. Gelisak was fun. We saw some crazy aggressive Anarchy play from these two. Like, they would both pick Anarchy at the start of the round, and the starts of the rounds were just explosive. They would just go in hard. Gelisak, I think, had the plan that he wanted to match Claus's aggressive style, and he had varying degrees of success doing that. Some rounds it went well. One big theme of today in general was the lightning gun, but especially in this game, Claus showed us what he was gonna do with this weapon for the rest of the day to come. Gelisak in these matches continually tried to like show up at items after he died, you know, he would fight Claus and do a lot of damage and then respawn and show up at the Mega, and he wouldn't have the guns to defend himself, he wouldn't like have the right positions, and Claus would just roll over him. It was very ambitious play from Gelisak, it was very bold, but I don't think it quite had the right theory behind it to work out. Like, you can see that he was trying to be fast, he was trying to be as impressive and as imposing as Claus can be with his aim, but I don't think he had the style and flair that Claus had on the day, really. Two important moments in Ruins of Sarnath saw Gelisak caught with a railgun out at a really bad time. Once he was firing rails, and he literally just let Claus walk up to him because he fired a rail at a bad time. You know, while that railgun's reloading, Claus just for free can get right up in Gelisak's face and, you know, acid spit and LG. It's the perfect invitation for Claus. And there was another time, somewhere in my notes here. Yeah, he just gets caught with the railgun out while Claus is LGing him, and that just isn't gonna fly at this level of Quake. Ruins of Sarnath definitely seemed to go better for Gelisak. He managed to slow everything down. He still showed up at items at kind of funny times when he was a fresh spawn, but on the whole, he held on to the game longer. He actually punished Claus for being over-aggressive and for over-committing, but all in all lost 2-0. Rafa vs. Razy, the R&R matchup. This was one that got a lot of people pretty stressed out because Razy almost eliminated Rafa. They played on Corrupted Keep, and, you know, a lot of Solag on Solag play. Rafa did some really cool stuff here. There were some close fights, you know, he didn't let himself just get bullied by the OG. Rafa is smarter than that. He hit some good OG in return. It wasn't until later in the day that his aim would really switch on. But yeah, really interesting in these matches was that Rafa, when he would get 2 frags, like if Rafa got 2 frags in the match when Razy would respawn on his 3rd champion, all the momentum from the map would be in Rafa's favour and Razy just wouldn't be able to swing it back. And also importantly, Razy was picking Galena as his 3rd champion. Which, like, you spawn as a Galena and you have your totem, right? And it's like, great, you can heal yourself a bit, you can potentially get that 75 damage on your opponent, but it's not useful for mobility or for escaping situations. You know, if you pick Slash, you have that exit. If you pick Nyx, you have the Ghost Walk. If you pick Ranger, you can kind of like die or about. Galena, I can see how he might like to use it aggressively. I can see how he might want to use it in the long game in like an overtime, but it really failed him in this matchup against Rafa, and the commentators noticed this. But the Corrupted Keep Razy's pick came down to a 5th round. Rafa made it nice and close. There was one really pivotal moment at the end of the game where Rafa made this like flying attack as Nyx. He jumps in, he hits a direct rocket, and he ghost walks, and he gets away. But that was just a hint for Razy. Razy's like, okay, well, he doesn't have his ghost walk up now, and Razy was able to push in and LG him down from there and win the map. The second map was Blood Covenant, and I think a lot of people expected Rafa to just stomp this. I expected Rafa to just stomp this. You know, Corrupted Keep is Razy's map to win. Blood Covenant was like Rafa's home turf in Quake Champions this year. Especially around the second round in this map, I thought we saw Rafa maybe a little nervous, maybe a little, like, shaky. He still kind of does Rafa things though. We saw, like, Razy just ignored 1 red armor. He occasionally does this on a map. He just loses his sense of what items are up next, and he does something just really fucking random. And Rafa, you know, being Rafa, just takes full advantage of that and was able to control the map. The end of DM6 was a crucial moment because it came down to that last round, the 5th decider, and Razy was in the perfect spot to win. Rafa just had to kind of go all in. He was making this big chase, and he hit this railgun to tie up the game with like 4 seconds to go in the last round, taking it to an overtime. Razy respawns on that Galena, but Razy was trying to drag the game out to win by the clock, so when he respawns, he has no feel left on the items, and Rafa, you know, within a minute I think, had cleaned out the round and won the map. So they end up going to ZTN for the decider. I mean, Rafa's experience on this map, you know, he must have played thousands and thousands of games here over the years. Again, picking Galena last hurt Razy, and in 3 rounds, Rafa had eliminated Razy and secured his tournament life. There were lots of other close games here. Vu vs Avec, they had 2 maps go to 5 rounds. The last frag on their match was a real highlight of the day for me. Let's take a look at that. Astrobo vs Ron was a close game. I really feel like Dan could have won that if things had gone a little bit differently. the end of their Blood Covenant, which Astro Boy ended up winning, he was actually really close to throwing away, like right in their 5th round. He made this rocket jump and missed it, and actually like the entire round almost fell apart from there. Their deciding map was Sarnath, again coming down to this 5th round, another really close exciting game, go watch it. But the last round of their Sarnath, Dan just made this really weird decision early on with the Ranger Diarob. It gave the first frag to Zron, the second frag followed, and then by the third, you know, like, it was already over basically when that bad Diarob came out. It was a real fluff and a really unfortunate way to see Dan go. There were lots of other games today. Rafa versus Dahang I felt was actually a bit disappointing in the semi-final. Eventually Dahang did triumph and go on to play Vu, where Vu won. Claws versus Cooler was a controversial game, I guess. Like I said, I'm going to do a full analysis of that somewhere. I'm going to pick it apart and talk about like what these guys did. Cooler was looking very good, and then Claws just switched on the LG, and like, what can you do? As it turns out, there's not a lot you can do right now. If there were 2 themes of today, one was Sorlag and the other was Lightning Gun, like, that's really what it's going to be. This grand final between Vu and Claws is going to be intense. There's going to be a hell of a lot going on. We're going to have on one hand Claws, crazy aim, crazy tracking, you know, just hitting like a truck, being absolutely fearless. And on the other hand, we're going to have Vu, light characters, fast movement, you know, really, really great movement, really solid combat skills. I think it's going to be a really interesting clash. I hope it goes like down to the final seconds. There is a chance, I think, that Claws is just going to stomp this final. I have faith in Vu. I'm going to be rooting for Vu on the day. I think he has the background. I think, you know, being a CPMA player, I'm a bit of a CPMA player. I have that bond with him. I've got to back him up. I've got more notes that I didn't talk about, but it's okay. I will make more videos about this day. These games need a lot more attention, like more than I can say in one video. So yeah, I hope you're all enjoying QuakeCon. Let me know who you want to win tomorrow. If it's going to be Claws, if it's going to be Vu. God, I almost forgot who was playing. I have watched so much Quake today, my brain is slowly turning to mush. Now I just need to like funnel that mush into highly concentrated YouTube video packets. I don't know what's going on anymore. I need to stop recording this video. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.